Hey everybody, I am Sarah from Sourdough for Beginners. Today I'm going to teach you how to make sourdough cinnamon rolls, but how to do it fast. So if you find out in the morning that someone's coming over and you want to make a really excellent, yummy dessert, but you don't have the time to let the dough rise just with sourdough starter, you can do it fast like this. So a couple of things are going to make this go quicker. Our quick rise yeast is going to help, and of course our Bosch stand mixer. So this recipe is in my first discard recipe book, The Ultimate Guide to Sourdough Discard and Sourdough Recipes. It comes in both grams and cups. I've already measured out all of the ingredients except for the spread, which I'll show you later, just to make this go really quickly. I think that we could probably get this mixed up in less than 3 minutes. So sourdough discard, sourdough starter in your cinnamon buns is going to add some extra flavor. It's going to add the health benefits. So we know that sourdough starter helps your gut biome. The fermented properties of it are really good for you. So you're adding the health benefits of the sourdough starter, and also they will rise the dough if you use it as the primary rising agent. But today what we're going to do is we're going to speed it up and use our yeast as our primary rising agent. So to make this really easy, all I'm going to do is dump all of the ingredients except the flour into my mixer. I'm going to blend those together, and then I'm going to add my flour and I'm going to let the mixer knead it. So first of all, we've got 120 grams of starter. Now in the recipe, it calls for active starter. You have to have active starter if your cinnamon buns are going to use sourdough starter as your primary rising agent, right? If you're not going to use some yeast, then the starter has to rise the dough. So you would want to use active starter. If you are going to use yeast as your primary rising agent, then you can use sourdough discard. So that's in there. Now we're going to add 1 large egg. So I'm just going to break that, toss it into the mixer. There we go. Next we need 200 grams of warm milk. So I've just poured the milk into our measuring cup and I've just heated it up a little bit in the microwave. So we'll pour that in. Perfect. We've got 95 grams of sugar, so that can just go right in. We've got 7 grams of salt, that can go right in. Here we go. Oops, sticking a little, push that in. We've got, how many grams is this? 6 grams of vanilla extract. In it goes. Everything's just going right in there. And lastly, we've got our active dry yeast, which I'm just going to pour in. So a lot of recipes you're going to see, take the liquid, whether it's water or milk or whatever it is, add the yeast, maybe the sugar, let it sit for 5 minutes until the yeast activates. But I'm using quick rise yeast, and I find that you can just throw all of the ingredients in and it's still going to do its job. If you were only doing sourdough starter, then this would probably take between 4 and 7 hours to rise. But because of this quick rise yeast, these are going to rise in like 60 to 90 minutes. So all we're going to do is mix up a nice dough, a nice good strong dough, and then we're going to let it rise until it's doubled, and then we'll punch it down, roll it out, shape it into our cinnamon buns, let them puff up with another rise again, and bake them. So really simple, really easy. You're running around, you've got people coming over, you need to clean the house. This is going to make it so that you've got a good homemade dessert. So all of those ingredients are in there. I've reserved the butter and the flour. So I'm just going to use my whips on my Bosch stand mixer. This is the Universal Plus, to mix all of these ingredients together. So I'll just start on level 1. And once they're blended a little bit, I'm going to go right up to level 3 and give this a nice good mix. So it really won't need to mix for very long. There we go. Quick and easy. And then I'm going to take my lid off and pop my whisks out. So we're done with these now. These just pop into the sink to be washed. There we go, simple and easy. I'm just gonna scrape up any little bits and pieces on the side here that didn't get blended in. Here we go. Get those sort of mixed in. Now, I'm going to add my flour and my dough hook. So I like to put my dough hook in first. I find that it seats itself better if I do, because this is a small batch, because this is not, you know, a triple or quadruple batch. You want to use your dough hook extender. This comes with the mixer when you buy it. So it just kind of clips on underneath the dough hook, and then you take both of them and you sit them on, easy peasy, just like this. You just find where they match up. So you've got sort of like a T shape. On it goes. Now we're just going to add our, how much is this? This is 500 grams of flour. It works out to, I don't know, about 3 2/3 of a cup. So what's it say? 4 cups I've got on the cup side of this. So a little bit less, a little bit more. So in goes the flour. And now in goes our butter. Just like this. Super simple. Easiest you've ever done. Now, you can be a lot more careful with cinnamon rolls. You can dissolve your dry yeast into your milk with your sugar. You can let that start to foam up a little bit. Then you can add in your flour and your egg and your vanilla extract and your salt and your sourdough starter, and you can mix those all up, and then you can knead it by hand. There's certainly a careful way to do this, and I encourage you. It's nice and relaxing to do that. But when you're in a rush like I am, this is a great way. So I'm just going to turn my mixer on to level 1, and I'm gonna let this mix for a while until this dough becomes nice and elastic. It'll come out easily in a ball, and I'll be able to just put it in a bowl to rise. So I let the mixer run for about 3 minutes, and now the dough has come together. It's nice and elastic, so I can just easily lift my dough hook out, and it's going to come off. Easy peasy. There we go. Drop that in the sink to get washed. This dough smells delicious. It's got sugar and vanilla extract. It's going to be so good. So we'll just pop out our dough hook. Now, if you look, our dough has become a nice, elastic, cohesive ball. So all we have to do is set our mixer aside, and we'll take this bowl, and I'm just going to put a little bit of olive oil in it, just a little, just like that, just to make it so that the dough doesn't stick to the bowl while it's rising. And then we're going to lift this beautiful dough out of our bowl. So just like that, put it all together, right? Make it into a nice ball. Maybe knead it a little just to get it to become a nice little ball, just like that. There we go. And then I'm going to stick this ball of dough in my bowl. I'm going to stick some plastic wrap on it, and I'm going to let it double in size. The instant yeast is going to make this double really fast. So somewhere between 1 and 2 hours, this is going to be fully doubled. And then I'll come back, I'll show you how to roll this out, spread our toppings on, get it puffed up, and get it baked. So there we go. Easy, fast, so great. Okay, so I let my dough rise. It's nice and big and puffy right now. So what I'm going to do is get it out on the counter, roll it out, spread some butter on it, spread the cinnamon and sugar mixture on it, get it rolled up into cinnamon rolls, cut them, get them into my tray that I'm going to cook them in, and then we'll let them rise for another hour, hour and a half, just until they get nice and puffy. And then they just pop in the oven at 350 for 20 to 28 minutes, depending on how hot your oven is. Bake them, good to go. And then if you want, you can make some cream cheese icing. I'll show you how to make that in a little bit. It's really easy. It's quite delicious. In regards to your cinnamon bun size, you can do whatever you want. Today, I want to use my little pan, and I want to make big tall cinnamon buns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll my dough out to about 11 inches wide, so that by the time I make the 4 cuts to make 5 cinnamon buns, they are about 2 inches. Now I'll just show you. Might seem weird, but you know, I just like to try and be as accurate as I can. So I'll just use my little tape measure and like make sure I'm at about 11 inches wide, and then I'm just gonna roll it out however long it needs to be in order to get it to about a quarter or a third of an inch thick. So what we're going to do is we are going to pop our dough out of our bowl onto a floured surface. So we're just going to spread some flour, not too much, not too little, out onto the surface here, right? I'm going to just sort of punch it down because it had been, you know, it had been rising, so it was all full of air, right? And then I'm just going to take my rolling pin. I'm going to flour it a little bit. We don't want to add so much flour that it's changing the consistency of this dough, but we do want to add enough that we're going to be able to roll the dough sort of in a nice and easy, consistent way. So like I said, what I'm looking for is for this dough to be about 10 inches wide. And I'm going to use, 11 inches wide, just to give some room for the distance between cuts. So I like to just take my my measuring tape, and you can see we're at about 11 inches. So I'm going to keep it at this width, and then I'm just going to roll it out however long it needs to be in order to maintain that width. So there we go. We've got like a nice piece of dough here. Now I'm just going to make sure it's not stuck to my counter. There we go. Beautiful. So now this part's easy. I took the rest of the recipe, which is 80 grams of white sugar, 100 grams of brown sugar, and 20 grams of cinnamon. I got them into this bowl. I've got them all mixed together, and I have my 95 grams of softened butter ready to go. So all we're going to do is just take this butter and spread it out on our dough. Really simple, just like this. Get a nice thin layer all the way across. Here we go. Use it all up. The butter makes the cinnamon sugar mix stick, but it also makes the cinnamon buns nice and smooth and soft and buttery. So the butter really adds to the texture of our cinnamon buns once they're baked. So I'm just going to scrape as much of this out of here as I can, like this. Here we go. So as you can see, this is going quick, right? So that's why I said, if you're in a rush and you want this to go really fast, maybe you just found out someone's coming over, this is a really great way to get something delicious, homemade, and ready to go. So I'm just going to take my brown sugar, white sugar, cinnamon mixture, and all I'm going to do is just dump it out on this dough, just like this. Just like this. Dump it, get it all on there. I like excess, so this is a lot. It really is, but it just makes them so yummy. It makes them ooey gooey. So now I'm just going to take my hands and spread this out a little bit. Try to get it towards the edges of the dough. I'm not too worried if a little bit spills off the edge. It's not a big deal. Just like this. And now, maybe I'll just wipe my hands off. Actually, I think they're probably going to be fine. So what I'll do is I'll get the edge of my dough going, and I'm going to roll this dough as tightly as I can, just like this. So roll it up. There we go. All set. I'm going to just try and secure my edges here. So I might sort of squish my ends in just like this. There we go. And I'm just going to sort of pinch down this edge so that it doesn't unroll on me once I cut it. Now I'm going to take my baking pan, and you can use butter or oil, whatever you like, something just to make sure that your cinnamon buns don't stick to your pan. You can use a non-stick pan. I like to use the glass. I think they make it nice. I'm just using some spray oil, Pam, olive oil. Spray on. I think it works great. It's nice and easy. So I've got my big log here. I'm going to set my baking dish here. I'm going to take my measuring tape and let's see what we got. Well, we ended up with about 13 inches and I want five rolls. So I'm going to cut at about 2.5 inches. So I'm going to use a sharp knife. I'm going to saw a little so that we don't squish the dough down. We want it to stay nice and round. And as you can see, these are very tall. They're going to be quite big because don't forget, we're going to let these rise again for another hour so that they get, you know, really nice and puffy. So here we go. So we ended up with 5. So all I'm going to do is take my nice cinnamon roll, set it in the tray here. There we go. Just like this. We'll sort of spread them out as much as we can because they are going to puff up and perk up. If you ended up being a little bit loose in your rolling, that's okay. Just squish it together. They're gonna puff. There we go. I might take all of this extra that fell out, sprinkle it on top. You don't have to if you don't want to pick it up off your counter, but who likes waste? No one does. So there we go. So here they are in our baking tray. So now what I'm going to do is let these sit. I'm going to cover them with plastic wrap and I'm going to let these sit on my counter for about an hour to an hour and a half for what we would call a second rise until they get nice and puffy. And then I'm going to bake them at 350 for 20 to 28 minutes. While they're in the oven, I'm going to make a nice cream cheese icing that we can just slather on after they come out. So we'll see you soon. So they're nice and puffy. It's been just over an hour. I left them sitting on top of the stove. The stove is just preheating. I'm going to get it up to 350. So I'll just pull this plastic wrap off. And if you remember what they looked like when I first shaped them, you can see that they've puffed up quite a bit. They've risen up and into each other. They're touching. So I'm going to put these in the oven for 20 to 28 minutes, depending on the temperature of the oven. And in the meantime, I'm going to take you over and show you how to make a super decadent cream cheese icing. Okay, so this is totally optional, but super delicious. So if you can do it, I say you should. It's also very simple, just like when we mixed up the cinnamon buns and we just threw everything into our mixer. That's exactly what I'm going to do here. So on the recipe that's in my book, it calls for 8 ounces of cream cheese. I didn't quite have 8 ounces. I had 6.5. So I just adjusted my recipe, did some quick math to make that work. So I'm going to throw in some cream cheese. It calls for 1/2 cup of butter. I've got just slightly less than 1/2 cup of butter. I'm going to throw that in there. For easy peasy. We're going to have a teaspoon of vanilla extract. We'll just throw that in. There we go. And we're just going to add a tiny little bit of salt, just the tiniest little bit, 1/4 of a teaspoon. Let's see, where do we have some salt? Here we go. Got some salt. And then the recipe calls for 4 cups of icing sugar or powdered sugar, whatever you call it. So I've just reduced it a little bit just to accommodate the smaller amount of cream cheese that I had. So all I'm going to do is just dump all of these ingredients into the mixer. I'm going to turn on the mixer with the whips on, and I'm just going to let the whips go nuts until we get a nice fluffy icing. And then once the cinnamon buns come out of the oven, this will be an amazing topping for our cinnamon buns. So here we go. I'm just going to get our whip on just like this, snap it on, get our lid on, and turn it on. I'll start at 1, and then once it starts to blend, I'll turn it all the way up. So I've just got some sugar and butter and stuff sticking to the edge here. So what I'm going to do is just scrape down my edges And then I'm going to turn this up to the highest setting and let it blend until it turns into a nice whipped icing. I'll show you in just a second here. I'm going to spread this beautiful icing on top. Look how lovely it is. I'll show you some. So it's just nice and thick, tastes good. And then we've now done everything that's in the recipe from the book, and we're going to enjoy these for dessert when our guests are here. I thought I would just take this moment to tell you that I appreciate you all so much. I really hope that you will subscribe. I hope that you will go down in the comments and ask any questions that you have, or tell me what you think that our next recipe should be. You know, we wouldn't be here learning about sourdough together if it weren't for all of you coming and watching the videos and telling me what it is you want to bake next. So there are our beautiful, beautiful cinnamon buns. So I just cooked them long enough until they're just starting to brown on top, but they still have some white on the sides. So we'll let those cool, and then I will show you them iced up. Talk to you soon. So they've cooled a little bit, but they're still, you know, pretty warm. But that's a great time to put the icing on. What I did was I set the icing in the fridge for a little while it was cooling, while the cinnamon buns were cooling. So I just put them into a container, and I have way more icing than I could possibly need. So I guess I'm gonna have to find something else to bake. There's a really yummy cupcakes recipe in my second book, which is the next ultimate guide to sourdough recipes. I am holding my phone while I'm doing this, which is making it a little bit tricky. Usually I hold the edge of the pan, but as you can see, what I'm doing is just generously putting this cream cheese icing on, and then I'm gonna let these continue to cool all the way until they're totally cool, and then we are going to eat these for dessert after supper. So I made lots of icing, and cream cheese icing is delicious. So let's put lots of icing on while my pan slides around. But there you go. There you go. So be sure to read the description of this video. I'll put all kinds of links in there. I'll put links to the book. I'll put links to the Bosch Universal Stand Mixer. I did want to mention that Bosch is sold by a company called Nutrimil in the US. They also sell grain mills and all sorts of things that are related to baking. And they have given us a coupon for $20 off anything on their website, including the Bosch Universal Stand Mixer. So if you go in and you buy something from their website, you can use the coupon code sourdough for beginners, for being spelled FOR, in their coupon code section at checkout, and you'll automatically get that $20 off. Or you can go into the description of this video, and there will be links to specifically to the mixer that we used in this video there. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I hope that you enjoy your cinnamon buns. Let me know how good and yummy they were.